BC just finished 2-10. They're going to need to do a lot of work in the transfer portal, but which positions are they going to need to hit hardest? I'll explain.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over 10 years. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right spot. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Now, the portal is not open yet, but the portal movement is happening. It's everywhere right now. What positions does BC need to hit? I'm going to look on the defensive side of the ball, the linebacker. I want to look at what the offense needs, and should BC really spend at the quarterback position? I'm going to get into all of those on today's show. Now, let's dive in first. I need to start this conversation off with preface this conversation with an assumption, because otherwise, this conversation is a little different if this is not true. And what I'm going to say is that this transfer portal class is going to have more resources and more money for BC and Kenyatta Watson to spend than we've seen in years past. As I said on previous shows, I do not believe that Kenyatta Watson would come here if he was told that the purse strings were being tightened and that he did not have resources to go out and do what he needs to do for his job. His love for BC is not the reason he's here. He's a high and up and coming, general manager type. Other schools would have wanted him. Notre Dame wanted him at one point. I'm sure another school would have grabbed him. He knows that he's going to be able to do his job here, and that involves being able to spend money. So you may not agree with me, but from what I've seen and from what I've heard, that's what I think is going to happen. Okay? So if BC has more money, if BC can go out and spend, right now they have 7 transfer portal slots, but this transfer portal doesn't open technically until January 2nd. So it's time for this to kind of go slow. And as I've said before, I bet a lot of this stuff will happen behind the scenes, and then guys will enter the portal, whether it's because, they're a year and there's not going to be a spot, or they're moving on to another school. There's all those little things that could happen. So I think the spots will open up. But what does BC need to do? What positions do they need to prioritize? The number one for me is not quarterback. It's up there. Quarterback's up there. But I think linebacker is absolutely critical, because of any position for next year that I'm worried about for BC, and when you're 2-10, you should be worried about a lot of things. The linebacker position is scary. To me, the linebacker position is that Will Smith meme. I used it the other day for BC basketball, where it's Will Smith in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air sitting in the house and it's empty. That looks like that's Griffin Collins right there. Griffin Collins is the last guy left, because Owen McGowan has graduated. Davion Crouch has entered the transfer portal. Bryce Steele is gone. We don't know what is going on with Jalen Blackwell, but he's had 2 big injuries and has not come back. Like, this position is very shallow. Like, the guys that are available to you now are going to be, and Jason Hewlett's gone too. Sorry, Jason Hewlett, the transfer that you brought in, he's gone too. The what you have left is Griffin Collins, who played 70 snaps last year. Zachary Thomas, who played about 20 snaps. And that's about it. So do you think you should go to the transfer portal? Heck yeah. Should you be getting more than one linebacker? Absolutely. Because you don't have anybody. I love Griffin Collins. I think he's going to be a fun linebacker, and he reminds me a lot of like what linebackers used to be like at BC. Just big kid. But he's only played 70 snaps, and he will play a role next year. But do you really want to put your defense in the hands of a guy that played 70 snaps? I don't think that's the best idea. Now, this whole thing, again, goes back to, if they could have kept Davion Crouch, the need here would be a little bit less. But now that you lost him, you need 2. You need at least 2. So there's been guys out there already in the portal. And I'm not going to go over names because I don't know if they're linked to BC yet, because we can't find out yet. But there's starting level linebackers that have entered. And I think that's going to be critical for BC because you need somebody. A lot of times, the linebackers are the guys that are setting the defense, calling out the plays. They have the dot. They're like they're the leader on that defense a lot of the time. When you don't have those guys, when you don't have a linebacker that has that experience, you are really at a deficit, and you don't. You really just don't. You also have Palahe Fahoa too, but again, he's played 30 snaps, 40 snaps his entire career. You can't rely on that. You need to have experience brought in. So for me, a number one in terms of positional help, it's got to be linebacker because you don't have anything there. Like so these other positions I'm going to talk about, you have pieces that you can work with. But BC, when you go 2-10, there's reasons you went 2-10. Now, the reasons that you went 2-10 are the reasons why things are going to get worse before they get better. Because some people, like Crouch, I don't know what his deal was, why he left. That's up to him to decide. They're gone. And so what happens next at linebacker? You got to be aggressive. This is one too where you can't bring in guys that are inexperienced with high upside. You need guys that are experienced. You need players with lots of snaps under their belt who have played, and they're out there too. But again, go back to what I started this episode with. You have to be able to have that money to do this. You have to be able to do that, and they need to be able to be guys that you can trust at this level. No offense to Will Strika, who they brought in from Division III, but he's a role player, like very low on the totem pole. Probably played a little bit of special teams. That was about it. You need someone who is D1 ready, who is FBS ready. And that's the big key. The second position is right in front of them. Heck, that defense, that it needs to be retooled bad because as we saw, they finished dead last in a lot of things. And right now, you need to get your defensive coordinator in because they're going to be able to need to make those relationships to bring these guys in. So Bill O'Brien said on his podcast this week, they're announcing hopefully soon all their positional coaches and the coordinator positions. That needs to happen fast because you need to be able to go out and build those relationships with the next position, which is the edge rusher. The edge rusher, you just saw one player already returning, Ela Boykin, and I was talking to Mitch Wolf about Ela, and he was saying like he just signed a new contract, which that's what they do, guys. I know some people are like, what is that? That's what they do. They're signing contracts. A lot of these guys. Now, is there a lot of some of these contracts? No, but he's coming back. Ela Boykin for Barton College. He came along pretty well near the end of the year. Should he be he will be the next Donovan Azaraku? No, but could he be, a service role player for you? Absolutely. At edge, you have a few more bullets in your chamber. Israel Aladapapu, I like what he can do. You didn't see a whole lot of him yet, though. I think he could be someone you could be watching for. You got Jaden Fry. We didn't see anything out of him yet. And then it's interesting to see who will be coming back. Like a Josiah Griffin, will he be back? Like he hasn't really done much of anything. But he's on the roster. He could be there. But what you're missing, what you do not have, a favor Bate on Inuisi too. Sorry. What you were missing is the guy. You cannot, in good conscience, just roll out the same guys next year. The biggest issue that you had on defense last year, number one, was that you could not get pressure on anybody consistently without blowing like heck. That has to change. You need to get somebody in here who can win one-on-one matchups, who can get to the quarterback and get pressure. That will make everybody behind him better. Guess what? This is also an expensive position. So you need to be able to go out there and spend to get an edge rusher. Now, for this one, I am not under the mind that you have to get a power 4 guy. I just want a guy that can get to the quarterback. Like I mentioned on a show yesterday, someone from UTEP who had like 7.5 sacks. He was 6'7". Elijah Martin was his name. Perfect. Like get a guy like that. Huge, big upside, already has done it. Like bring a guy like physical freak, bring a guy like that in here. That would be a perfect get for BC. But you need to get an edge rusher. You have to. And do you need to get two? Yeah, you might. You have a lot of needs, but if you can get two good ones, go for it, because that's going to be good. And again, this is a position too. I'm really interested to see how the portal, evolves here, because you get guys here that some of them haven't really done much. Will you get those slots? Because if you get a couple extra slots, then yeah, go get two edge rushers. You definitely need that. But if you're against it, or money wise, if it's not as much as I think it could be, maybe you only go with one. But that's the second position that you really need to get. Now, in a moment, let's flip on the other side of the ball, because, hey, you were 2-10. You got a lot of needs. We'll talk about who they need to go look at in just a moment. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what live betting with FanDuel is so exciting. You're just not watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets on, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel loves you jump in at the moment. With the Patriots, once Drake May starts going, I love jumping on FanDuel, finding odds for the next touchdown, getting it on the Patriots, getting those odds, maybe even putting it on one of his receivers to see if I can get that too. It's so much fun, so easy to do. That's why I love FanDuel, and you will too. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live bets all season long. With FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Folks, I got to tell you about something too. The new Everydayers Club is for you. Thank you for making Locked On Boston College your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you're a true diehard Boston College fan, the Everyday All Access tier is built for you. You'll get a one-on-one text access with me, and some of you guys are already doing this. I love talking with you. All access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to lockedonbostoncollege.superstream.com to join the Everydayer Club and unlock all access. You can also find the link in the show notes. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all who made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. To all my everydayers there, love y'all. So hopefully you become an all-access member too, because I'd love to see you and be able to chat with you, and you can ask me anything you want. It's a great deal. Hopefully you sign up. Now, big question. Now, Graham Dietz of SI, he wrote a whole column about how he doesn't think that the quarterback position should be something of emphasis going into the transfer portal window. And I get his point that Bill O'Brien's scheme is predicated on just making quick decisions, and you can get a lot of different guys that can do that. That being said, again, this class is going to be about splash. To me, it's going to be a splash class. BC needs to show that they're serious about being a contender in college football. Going out and just landing a bunch of positional players is great, but it's not also to sell your fan base if you bring in, a quarterback from, Old Dominion, and they struggle here. You know what I mean? Like, you got to go out there and make a splash. You got to be able to sell this. Like, it's a business. Like, you need to go out there and show that you want to be like UVA and Duke the last year, who did a good job. Like, yes, you do have a whole lot of needs. You know who had a whole lot of needs last year and fixed it real quick? UVA. UVA was terrible last year. They beat you. Sure, they beat you. But I don't even think they made a bowl game. I think they're in the same boat you were. They went out there. They got a quarterback. They filled it. They were able to also fill up positions. Again, if the resources are there, do it. So go out and get a quarterback. That's what I'm saying. Nothing gets a fan base more pumped up than if you have a quarterback that can do this. And if you get one that can move your offense, if you fix the things around them and you get a good quarterback, you're going to go from your floor to high pretty quick. If you just play it safe and go out there and get a mid quarterback or someone that doesn't have a high upside that you can't, like, you're hoping that whoever they bring in, Bill O'Brien, can work with. You're just saying, okay, well, we went 2-10. Maybe we'll go to 5-7. Now, forget that. Go for broke here. If you can do it, if this school, you already showed that you brought in, look, listen to this for a second. Before I'm going to go on a diatribe. Okay, AJ is going off here. You just went in your front office staff from Spencer Dickow, who was, a nice guy. I worked with him a little bit. He was, a guy I talked to quite a bit, but he was brand new at that job. Like, this is a guy that was just out of football, just learning the position, and they, and asked to run all of the player development and all of all that stuff. You just brought in Kenyatta Watson, who many schools really, really wanted, who has a ton of experience, and you brought in for the first time an assistant GM to work with him in Ryan Bartow, who worked at 247. He's also worked with FSU, Georgia Tech. He worked with Watson at both stops. He worked at Syracuse, Oregon. Like, you just took a gigantic steroid shot into what your program does. This is a big deal. This is showing that you are serious. So be serious out there. Go spend that money. Get yourself a quarterback. Now, there's been names. It's Jaden Craig and Kenny Minchie are two that I've mentioned, but there's been buzz elsewhere too, right? Like Tom Loy had one with eyeballs about some guy, that there's another guy out there that he can't talk about. I can't mention who that is, but who knows? Go for it. Do not go and play this safe. If you have the resources, and again, I think they do, to take that next step. They're not going to be Miami. They're not going to be LSU. That's not what I'm saying. But you can replicate what UVA just did. You can do that. It's not that hard. Syracuse did the same thing. Like, you can do this. If this isn't just lip service, go out there and get a quarterback. You saw what it did for Syracuse. You saw what it did for Duke. You saw what it did for UVA. Go out there and get them. Don't just go get a guy that's going to be safely to run your offense. Go get a guy that can learn and win you football games. Because if you don't have a good quarterback out there, it's great that you have an edge rusher, but if you have a guy that's just safely throwing 5-6 yard dinks and dunks, yeah, you'll win a few games here and there, and maybe you'll get to 5-7. But forget that. Go for a guy that can throw it deep, a guy that is explosive. Do it. I think that's super important. Now, the other position, that was more of a diatribe than me telling you about the quarterback, but I feel passionately about this. That BC, yes, there's other needs, obviously, but I think this is still a big one. You cannot go into next year with just Shaker Rising. You cannot. And I love Femi Babalola and Anthony Colner. They're freshmen. That's not something you can rely on. If BC is in big trouble if they go into next year with just Shaker Rising. You need to have something else. And it needs to be more than just a guy that's, a developmental guy. You need someone who can play. The other big position, the other one that I think is also going to be critical is on the offensive line. Now, it's interesting because we don't know what BC is going to have for depth next year. You know that you're going to have Michael Krauns back. You know that Robert Smith will be there and Eric Doherty will also be there. So you have some experienced, guys, especially that's a lot of interior guys, right? On top of that, you have, Pape Sai and Ryan McGow. Those are your tackles, but Logan Taylor's a big one. Will he be back? Will he be back? Because Bill said he might be. But it also sounded like he accepted a bowl invitation. So I'm not sure what's on there. It sounds like all signs point to Jude Bowery graduating, and that sounds about right. And so, what position should you, rely on here? You've got guys coming up, but do you have enough that you trust? You're going to have a new offensive line coach, so that's going to be important, and maybe that'll help. But I think getting a tackle is going to be big. Of any of the two positions, I think you could get by with the guards that you have. I think you're okay there. I'm a little more worried about the depth at tackle, especially if Logan Taylor's not there. And Taylor should be a guard anyways, but that's a whole other story. You need to get some tackles in here. So what will Boston College do here, I think will be big and something worth watching because you need to get more experience on there. Because, you're going to have some experience. Like, Robert Smith has obviously played. Doherty played quite a bit. Crowns played, but not a ton. So, and I think you're one injury away from being really worried here because you're looking at, especially a tackle, you don't have the depth there yet. And the guys that you do have are young and inexperienced. So looking at tackles, just like edge, just like linebacker, this is going to be a primo position. It's going to be expensive, but you've been able to do the past, been able to bring guys in, whether it's Kyle Hergel, Zion Johnson, you brought in transfers that have played. You're going to have to do it again. It's going to be a critical one for BC. So the offensive line will be something that BC is going to have to figure out, because you can't go in with the guys that you have now. You need to build on to that. So going out there. And finally, in our last segment, what about these other positions? What other ones should BC be looking at? I'll tell you my thoughts on that in just a moment. Let's talk about it. Something men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life, it just doesn't switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rouge Get Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rouge Get Ready is a next generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. Rouge Get Ready combines 3 clinical proven ingredients in 1 mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. You connect with a board certified doctor online, and everything ships discreetly to your door. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head to rougiet.com/lockedoncollege. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rougiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, and I want to thank each and every one of you who listen to Boston College every single day. If you're an everydayer, you have made us the #1 Boston College podcast. I want to thank each and every one of you. Now, to wrap things up, we're talking about the portal. What is Boston College going to need to really solidify and make a priority in the portal? And I've made a case for a bunch of different positions. There's a bunch of others that I think they should still be looking at. Now, one that they have really struggled at in the last couple of years has been wide receiver. Now, you brought in 3 wide receivers over the last couple of years, and they really have not panned out. You had last year, you had Jerron Bradley and Aiden McGowan, who were recruited by Jeff Paffley. That needs to be said. But McGowan had 0 receiving yards and didn't play. And Jerron Bradley fell out quickly as Reed Harris kind of fell into that position. This year, you brought in VJ Wilkins, who played like 2 snaps a game, it felt like, for most of the season. He had about, a couple bombs to start the year, and then all of a sudden he fell off a cliff. Didn't see anything out of him. But I will look at what you have, and I think you're going to need to get a wide receiver, because you're going to have Lewis Bond is obviously gone. Reed Harris hopefully will be back. Cross your fingers, folks, on that one. And then you have Jaden Skeet, who also, cross your fingers, will be back. Not in the younger guys like Dawson Pugh, who we saw play quite a bit last year, and maybe a guy either like Samaj Fleming or Nedrick Bolden, and then an injured player like Jonathan Montague, who we didn't see this year because he was hurt all year. And that's your roster, basically. You got some other, freshmen coming in as well, but I'm not going to put them into this conversation at this time. Do you go out and get another wide receiver? I put this lower on my list, but it also depends on what happens. If you lose Reed Harris, yes, absolutely you need to go out there and get that. Cedric Lott's another one that's out there too. I'm not sure what's going to happen with him. Then if you lose, a guy like, I don't know, if like a Wilkins or maybe a younger guy then you go, a safer player. But I think one thing needs to be said about the wide receiver position at BC, and that's, you need the depth, but watch what O'Brien does with his wide receivers. And it may just be because of the depth that he has, but you only see usually 3 or 4 guys play. Like, you don't get, like this year, it was all Harris, Bond, Pugh, or /Skeet when he was healthy, and then like a smattering of Luke McLaughlin, and that was it. That was it. You didn't see any of the other guys really. Like, well, as I said, VJ Wilkins was like invisible. So I don't put this high. I think this is a lower one for now, depending on what happens with the portal. Defensive tackle is another one. It's all going to depend on who comes back. If you get Owen Stodmeyer and Ty Clemens back, who both could come back with reticle red shirts, you're in pretty good shape, I think, because you got Chris Marable also, who can also play. And so, like, in the hierarchy of needs, I put them kind of lower, because a lot of the guys that you have, you're not, especially those 2 come back, you're only losing Quan Williams, who graduates. You can find, if you need to get another depth player, you can go out there and do that. But you're also you're going to have all those guys. You have Chuck Nato coming back, he played like 3 games this year, and I'm assuming either got hurt or they're trying to get him up to FBS speed. I don't put this as a high one for BC. That's my thoughts there. And running back is the last one I wanted to bring up. I'm not going to bring a tight end because I don't think they need it. But running back, I do think there's a argument to be made. They could use a running back. You got Turbo, who's again, fingers crossed he's coming back. But you lost Jordan McDonald, and you could hope that a Bo McCormick or a Mekhi Dodd, transforms into that, or maybe even a freshman like Cedric Addison. Or you can go out there and get another running back, because BC needs 2 running backs to run their offense. They do. They've at least 2, sometimes 3. So you lost McDonald, you lost Alex Broom. You can go out there and find, and honestly, running backs aren't that expensive unless you're going for a premier running back. And BC doesn't need to do that. But going out and get a Jordan McDonald type player isn't that expensive. So I think this is one where I would love to see them get just another body and a certain type, like a bigger running back, a physical running back that BC can bring in. You don't need a speedster. You don't need a guy that's a scat back. You need a big physical running back to add to that mix. I think they could easily do that, and it wouldn't cost them a whole lot. So that's my thoughts there. On tomorrow's show, I want to talk about Kenyatta Watson and his connections to Auburn. Could that reap benefits in the transfer portal? We'll look at what Auburn has in the portal, how they line up to be. I'll get into all that on tomorrow's show. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Eagle Insider as well. You can find me on FanDuel, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. I'm on all the social media channels, and I hope to see you tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.